Hello friends and welcome to my channel. The beginning of May was really cold and it was still snowing and I felt like the summer would never come. So in order to fight the rain and cold and the late spring, I decided to start my weaving project. I had gotten some silk wool yarn when I visited Wetterhof last spring. So now I decided to make it into a shawl. And not only that, I decided to try to weave a pattern without using any other color. So that meant that I had to actually look into how to warp my loom so that my pattern would come from the weaving alone. So that was a challenge. Let's go to see how it went. I have 3 skeins of this silk merino yarn. That is not much, but I hope it is enough. Now I will have to set up my small loom. I decided to make an even weave shawl with squares of huck lace. In huck lace, the pattern is generated using float yarns. Depending on the yarn, it may or may not resemble actual lace. I am trying to explain the patterning as well as I can here. Let's start with an even weave, or plain weave. In this diagram, the 4 rows of heddles are shown on the top and the tails on the right hand side. The rows of the fabric start from the top and you read the chart down, although with this symmetric pattern the direction isn't important. In plain weave, we use 2 threadles and 2 heddle bars. One threadle lifts 1/2 of the yarns that are all connected to the same heddle bar and the second threadle lifts up the rest. Now we need only to connect our threadles to the heddle bars. By alternating threadles you create an even weave, which we are all familiar with. I want to create squares of pattern with plain weave around them. Now, I have to separate some yarns to their own bars in order to move them independently to create the pattern. I have this chessboard-like pattern, so I actually need 2 sets of pattern bars. However, I have to connect the heddle bar to the plain weave threadles as well, so that I can still weave plain weave between the pattern squares. Now we have some pattern yarn set up, but we still can weave only plain weave. To make pattern we have to add threadles. Let's make the threadles 1 and 4 so that they can still weave plain weave. Now the threadle 1 lifts the same yarns as threadle 3 and the threadle 4 lifts the same yarns as the threadle 2. Now we can use threadles 1 and 4 and still make plain weave. Have we achieved anything? Well, yes, because now we can change the threadles 1 and 4 and do something different. What we want is to lift the pattern yarns at the same time the yarns next to those pattern yarns are up. This breaks up the plain weave and creates floats. This is done by connecting the threadle 1 to the heddle bar 1 and threadle 4 to the heddle bar 4. But nothing changes. Nothing changed because we haven't actually used the threadles 1 and 4. So let's start using them. Because I want to make a checkerboard of tiny squares, the threadle rows look similar to the heddle threading diagram. And now we have huck lace. We can make the pattern areas bigger like this. And we can make separate pattern areas like this. Now, enough of theory. We'll have to do this in practice. Now, on my loom, the creation of the huck lace pattern starts from threading the heddles. I have lifted my yarns up to see them well, and I have divided the yarns into bundles that correspond to the pattern areas. Here are the heddles, and I have 4 rows of them. Most of the yarns are going to go through the heddles on heddle bars 2 and 3, and only the pattern floats go to the heddles on the bars 1 and 4. Here is the pattern that has been cleaned out. I calculated the size of the shawl from the amount of yarn I had, taking into account the fact that I need extra yarn to the knots at the start and at the end. However, I can then use those extra bits to make a fringe to decorate the edges, so not much yarn is wasted. The first warp yarns weave only even weave, so I start threading every other yarn to the heddle bar 2 and 3. Easy. Now I have finished the first plain weave part and need to start adding heddle bars 1 and 4 to make the pattern. I found it easiest to thread the heddles in groups of 4. I select the right heddles on the right heddle bars and arrange them to my left hand. Then I select 4 yarns and thread the heddles in the right order. I first had to say the heddle bar numbers aloud, but then I started to figure out the pattern in my head. With all heddles threaded, I now thread the warp through the reed cam. This determines the horizontal density of the fabric. In this case, it is 8 yarns per centimeter or 20 yards per inch. My cam has 4 slits per centimeter, so I am threading 2 warp yarns through each. Finally, I tie the end of the warp to the starting bar. Now we have to look at the threadles. The threadles are connected to these bars in the middle. Every other bar is connected to the lower heddle bars, and the rest are connected to the upper heddle bars through the lever system at the top of the loom. This allows us to pull the heddles up and down. In many looms, these upper and lower bars are on their own rows, but in my tiny loom they are all at the same level. I have marked them so that it is easier to tie them correctly. Now, all the black on the connection diagram means that the corresponding threadle is connected to the lower bar, that is connected to the levers that pull the corresponding heddle bar up. The white color then means that the threadle has to be connected to the upper bar that pulls the corresponding heddle bar down. Then you have to do a little tweaking with the cord lengths so that the sheds open up big and nice. Now I'm ready to start weaving. I hope all these yarns have been threaded properly. I have tested that the shed opens nicely. Whether these make the right pattern, I'm not sure. So my idea is to first try out all the shades and see that the pattern comes out okay before I start the actual weaving. These little linen cord that little bit smoothens out the beginning area, but I could as well use some waste yarn to start with. So I could start weaving a few throws with this to smoothen out the beginning, and then I can start weaving. I'm using shuttles like this. You have seen these before in my previous weaving video. I'm using a drill to fill these bobbins. These are just paper straws, and I can then open these and put these in so that the yarn comes from the below. Oops, it's the wrong way. This way. And then it exits through the hole here. Like this. Well, I only need one of these, but now I have a spare one here. And I filled about 5 of these. I could fill them all, but it takes some time to fill. Usually I've noticed that the weaving takes about the same amount of time as filling the bobbins. So even if I'm using drill, it's still quite slow. Let's try some even weave first. I could tighten these a bit. I could actually tighten it from this side. Now it's much better. Let's see. Does look pretty good, even if it's really very uneven because of these beginning knots. Okay, here you can see how it evens out and what the pattern will look like. So here are the waste yarn throws, and here are my first trials. I tried out the pattern throws, so I get these yarns that don't get bound to the weft. And here's one group, here's the second, and then there's the even weave between. And I still have to reduce the force I used to beat the fabric because this is too tight. This is about a centimeter, and I have 1, 4, 6, 8, about 11, and this makes about 1 centimeter, perhaps 10 yarns per centimeter. I have to achieve, my goal is to achieve 8. So I loosen the tension on the warp, and I hope it helps. But now I'm planning to start the actual shawl, and I'm going to start with the row of even weave, and then I'm going to start to pattern again. Now that I have woven a few centimeters, I can add the spanner. This helps to maintain an even width. If you are a weaver, you notice here that those sheds don't open so well. My shuttle is getting stuck and the weaving gets slower. Here is me trying to adjust the cords to fix the problem. Now I have woven about 6.5 centimeters of this even weave, and it is time to start my huck lace. So now instead of just using 2 treadles, I start using all 4, going back and forth in this weird zigzag manner. The result should be something like this. I start really slowly, saying the treadle numbers allowed to keep track. Now I have woven the first pattern repeat. My row density is a bit off, so it's not exactly a square, but it is close. I hope to fix the density so that I can get a shawl that is close to a square. However, now it is turn to make some even weave again. Here is a way to make really invisible joins. I unravel a bit from the end tail and cut away 1 ply. Then I'm switching to a new bobbin. Oops, I put the bobbin on upside down. Let's not pay attention to that. Now, here I'm unraveling the end as well and cutting away 1 ply. I weave in the end tail of the previous bobbin. Now that I start with the new yarn, I lay the unraveled tails next to one another. When I beat, you can see that there is no extra bulk from this join. However, the weaving doesn't really go as planned. My sheds don't open and my shuttle is getting stuck. So, I have been stuck for a while. And if there's like little problems, I just solve them and I go forward. I don't usually film it. But here I've been frustrated. I started making this scarf when it was snowing outside. Now it is 26 degrees, so the first summer heat wave, and this is still unfinished. And why is that? It is because every time I try weaving, my shuttle gets stuck because my sheds don't open properly. This one opens somewhat. This one opens just fine, but this one doesn't. My shawl is this thick, it cannot fit through here. Well, I could weave if I push the comb back here, but I still have these few threads that are in the middle. And I've spent so much time trying to figure it out. Yesterday I started basically from beginning adjusting this, and I managed to get 2 sheds of 4 to open up. So now I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with the last 2 sheds, and I hope that I don't destroy the sheds I have. This is also a bit asymmetric. It seems that this side is higher than this side, but it's sort of I don't know why. I don't think that's something that I can fix.
You could hear the frustration in my voice. In order for me to finish this shawl, I really needed to figure this out. I first tried adjusting the treadle cords. I tried adjusting the cord at the top. Why doesn't this work? And why are my bars rising askew?
I've solved it. I have these extra heddles here, and one of these had sort of slipped around this. Or I think it was something like this. It was restricting this movement and the movement of both of these. It took me so much time to find it, but I found it, and now this works, and weaving is so much easier.
Now that I figured out the problem, weaving is so much easier. I wasn't even annoyed when I noticed that I had made a mistake on my pattern row and I had to unravel a few rows. But look at me go! This is how weaving should look like. I don't have much weaving left, but I'm running out of yarn. I only have this little ball left. Only about half an inch left. And what is more important, I still have yarn.
I fixed my loom problems yesterday. It took me only a couple of hours, perhaps like 2 hours, to weave this rest of the scarf. So now it's ready and I can take this out of the loom. I will want to leave a fringe, so I will probably cut it about here, and I can use the rest of the yarn over there to make fringes for the sides. Here is my scarf right from the loom. It is surprisingly square, although I was afraid that it would be completely wonky. The next thing I have to do, I have to tie the ends and remove this waste yarn and my first test runs here, and then I'm going to wet it and let it dry and then perhaps brush it. I have to think about it.
I removed a few extra rows I wove to the end and tied the warp into a fringe. I then used the crochet hook to add fringe to the sides.
And here is the finished shawl. Let's see, here you can see the pattern. I didn't manage to make all the squares completely square because I apparently wove a little bit too tight, but it doesn't really bother me. This pattern shows on both sides, and I finished the edges with little fringe. I can wear this shawl either around my neck, which is very good if you have like a jacket which has an open neckline, or if I'm doing some reenacting, I could even wear it on my head like the country women used to do in Finland. But thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel and follow along on my crafting journey. Bye!